I'm Mar, and this is my opinion. As most of you know, Iron Maiden is my favorite band. With how often I bring it up, how could you not know? Now, since I've been doing these videos, I've been wanting to do one focusing on the legendary band. The only question is, what angle would I approach it from? After a lot of thinking, I decided on an oldie but goodie favorite songs list. Now, remember, this is my opinion, and it's not going to be in any order. So do not scout me if a song that you love is towards the bottom, while a song you feel meh on is towards the top. Now, strap on your leather, put those horns in the air, and get ready to up those irons. This is Mars' top 12 favorite Iron Maiden songs. Why 12? Because 11 is too mainstream.
Despite being my favorite band, I didn't begin listening to Maiden until the mid-2000s, with Ed Hunter and the Reunion albums making me a fan. 2006's A Matter of Life and Death secured my fandom for life. While I enjoy the entire album, Brighter Than a Thousand Suns has always stood out. While a standard Maiden tune, it encompasses everything great about Maiden: galloping melodies, poetically worded lyrics, and Bruce's siren tenor. While he no longer has his 80s range, Bruce still carries a tune masterfully. The songs focus mainly on his mid-voice, but high notes are sprinkled in appropriately, with overdubbing making up for Bruce's age. Sons also showcases Maiden's more progressive musical leaning, which they began to explore on Somewhere in Time and perfected with Brave New World. The chorus is simple, consisting of two stanzas, with Bruce changing his vocal inflections as the music builds. Based on the atomic bombings that ended World War II, the lyrics summarize the events eloquently, historical hindsight included. Both elements combined create an excellent motif, painting an aureole picture of the bombings. A must-listen for history buffs, and those just getting into Maiden. The newest song on the list, clocking in at just over 18 minutes, Empire is Maiden's longest song, and the album's ending track. Based on the true story of the R101 disaster, the song combines the group's trademark epic songwriting with frontman Bruce Dickinson's love of aviation history. While past songs have featured keyboard accompaniment, this is their first song to include piano, which adds to the intro and ending storytelling. Bruce himself wrote and played the piano parts, and while he is no virtuoso, something he openly admitted in an interview with Chris Jericho, he is adequate for the song's purpose. The epic feeling picks up after the 4-minute mark, continuing onward until the story's stormy climax. While small, one of my favorite moments is when the guitars begin to play the piano melody. I cracked a smile during my first listen through. Bruce's love of aviation shines through the lyrics, along with the frontman's poetic wording. One line sums this up perfectly: "The dreamers may die, but the dream lives on." Empire also includes additional orchestration, which is given with Maiden. Mixed together with the piano and the band, it creates an epic melody befitting the 101 story. The song would be excellent live, but based on the Jericho interview, it is most likely never going to be played, which is sad. If the song has any weak point, although I use that word very loosely, it is Bruce's vocals. While he carries the tune well, the subtleties of his voice feel off, especially when compared to Maiden's previous album, The Final Frontier. I attribute this to Bruce battling cancer during the recording sessions, and I applaud the human air raid siren for pressing onward. The second track from Bruce's first album as vocalist, Children, is slower tempoed. While not quite a power ballad, it does have a similar vibe musically. Whereas a PB would usually be about love or other feelings, Children is about Hellspawn being based on the titular story. While slight, the tempo picks up about halfway through, galloping in the manner that Maiden became famous for, punctuated by guitar solos and Aries bass. From what I've gathered, the song's structure was inspired by Children of the Sea, a song from Dio-era Sabbath's first outing, Heaven and Hell. The structural similarities are easy to spot, and if this information is false, it's one hell of a coincidence. The slower tempo blends well with Bruce's tenor belting, allowing the melodic nuances of his voice to shine. Easily one of his best studio performances. If you are unable to see Maiden during their Book of Souls tour, Google the live performance of this song. Bruce's introduction speech is a riot. Now we come to the hardest choice I had to make. While I knew from the get-go I would be including one song from both the Di'Anno and Bailey eras of the band, with Paul Di'Anno, the question is which song to pick.
While I enjoy songs such as Phantom of the Opera, Killers, Wrathchild, and even the title song, in the end I decided to go with Prowler.
The aggressive guitar and drum work complements Paul's raspy vocal delivery well, rounded out by Steve's galloping bass. Lyric-wise, it's what one would expect from Maiden given the song title, first-person perspective about a stalking killer. It's an album opener, but with Maiden that is a badge of honor. While not always the best song on the album, the opener set tone, giving the listener an idea of what to expect. If you wanted to introduce non-metal fans to Maiden, this is one song I recommend. Most likely you'll have made a new fan. One of Maiden's most frequently performed songs, and one that is a delight to hear live. Every audience loves to sing along with the main riff. The title track of Maiden's ninth studio album, and sadly the only song from the outing that time hasn't obscured, it was a perfect final bow for Bruce's first tenure with the band. Lyrically, the song deals with man's fear of the unknown and how one's mind plays tricks on them at night. Moving shadows easily turn into monsters. Musically, it's what one expects from Maiden, with a progressive slant to the melodies. This helps the track stand out, as Maiden's two early 90s outings were stripped down when compared to Seventh Son and Somewhere in Time. Bruce's raspy singing technique is played down, but is still noticeable on his middle voice. Time to give Blaze some love. One of the longer songs on Maiden's 10th album, Edge of Darkness was one of the first songs I listened to from Mr. Bailey's run. The album is dark, as bassist Steve Harris was going through a divorce during the writing stage. While this may turn some listeners off, I feel it adds an emotional weight to the work. The dark tone also suits Blaze's bass baritone voice. It is also a return to Maiden's progressive sound. While their early 90s sound could have worked given the subject matter of several tracks, musically it wouldn't have the same feeling. Maiden's longer songs always feel truer when approached with the proggy mindset. Based on Francis Ford Coppola's Vietnam epic Apocalypse Now, the song summarizes the film well, written mostly from the perspective of Captain Willard. While one needn't have seen the movie to understand the lyrics, passing knowledge helps, especially for the more philosophical passages. If the song has any flaw, it's volume, as Blaze's voice is hard to understand in the opening passage, although it's hard to say whether that's solely because of Blaze's technique or the mixing. Another reunion-era song, Rainmaker was one of the first ones I listened to on repeat. The main riff hooked me, its fast-paced progressive feeling conjuring up images of rain, a feeling that Bruce Dickinson also had the first time he heard the riff, so I'm in good company. Imagination aside, the title is metaphorical, tying into the chorus. Rain cleanses, and from the narrator's perspective, it can wash away tears and fears. The solo is excellent, and would easily make a top list on its own, conjuring up the same stormy imagery as the main riff, evolving it into a torrent. Bruce's vocals are what one expects, but overdubbing during the chorus adds a choir effect to the story. After one listen, you'll want to run outside and stand in the rain, arms raised to the heavens. Same album, but the title track. It was hard to decide between this and Passchendaele, but in the end, acoustic guitar and fantastical imagery won out. Whereas Rainmaker I spam listened to on my own, Dance of Death was forced upon me, as two of my school friends, Jeff being one of them, constantly sang the opening lyrics. It got to the point that on certain days it would become an annoyance. So after a while I gave in and listened to the song, and I was hooked. The melody is acoustic driven, with even the electric riff having an unplugged vibe. A Celtic twang flows through the music, complementing the lyric story of a man who comes across a spirit-conjuring cult one night in the Everglades after a night of binging. Long, but the perfect song to play around Halloween. The latest addition to the list enjoyment-wise, To Tame a Land, is one of Maiden's early progressive works, although the vibe isn't as obvious as on later albums. Based on the classic sci-fi novel Dune, Land summarizes the story as only Maiden can. How well, I can't say as I haven't read Dune yet, a fact that is bound to have an angry mob after me. That aside, Bruce drops dozens of names and terms during the 7+ minute running time, so many that it takes a few listens to catch them all properly. I've read that he mispronounces several, but a non-fan like myself might not notice that. The song is also infamous for a controversy surrounding its naming.
Originally, Maiden planned on naming the song after its source novel, but permission was denied by author Frank Herbert, who hated rock music, especially bands of the heavier variety. Legal action was threatened, and in the end, Maiden went with a different name, although vocalist Bruce Dickinson did get back at Frank during the supporting tour.
Mr. Herbert, as it turns out, is a bit of a cunt, actually, because he, among other things, said that if we called this track that we wrote on the album Dune, that he'd sue us and stop the album coming out and all kinds of very unpleasant things.
This was a hard selection to make, as I love this album and each song is worthy of this list. In the end, the honor goes to The Mercenary. One of the faster tempo songs, along with The Wicker Man, it captures the intensity of 80s era Maiden while mixing in their 2000s proggy approach. While speculation, the lyrics appear to be inspired by the Predator films, as lines describe moments perfectly. I even used the song for a tribute video. If it's a coincidence, it's a perfect one. Mercenary was one of 4 Brave New World songs that were originally written for Virtual 11.
While I love Bruce's vocals on the song, part of me does wonder how it would have sounded with Blaze, as it is a song that would have fit his darker voice perfectly.
Based on the classic poem The Charge of the Light Brigade, The Trooper is a quintessential Maiden song and a frequent part of their live set list. Fast-tempoed and quick-worded, Trooper captures the spirit of a cavalry charge melodically while summarizing aspects lyrically. Whether you're in the pit or listening at the gym, one can't help but get pumped by the main guitar riff. One of the random songs I listened to in '06, Wasted Years has always been one of my favorites. In fact, if I had to summarize Maiden in a single song, this would be my choice. Written by Adrian Smith, Years is the only track from Somewhere in Time that doesn't feature guitar or bass synth. While not noticeable when listened to alone, it stands out when one listens to the entire album. Despite this, it still contains the album's early progressive leanings, which Smith's time-using lyrics amplify. This song almost wasn't, as Adrian was reluctant to share the main riff with Steve Harris for fear it was too commercial. Steve played it to Airy by mistake, and the bass player loved it. If you want a good laugh, Google Maiden's '86 appearance on PIT. Shows off both their humor and thoughts on mime performances.